Hi everyone. Welcome back to another Clay at Home live. Uh, yeah. So I guess I'm just gonna start things off like we have the last couple weeks and talk about a couple of the different ceramics I have in my collection. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with these are two things that are actually in my downstairs bathrooms. That we have a downstairs bathroom with a picture of Frank Zappa on the door. That the point of it is to kind of be like a funny, weird, chaotic bathroom for guests. So we have two things that I pulled out of there to show you guys today. The first one I've had for a while. It's a beautiful ceramic fox, a foxy butt from this was made by Sarah Brett, who used to be one of our work exchange at the Clay Studio. A lot of you might know her, and it's so funny, and I love it a lot. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is my most recent acquisition. It is this beautiful, you might have recognized these from the window display at the Clay Studio. A beautiful sculptural sweetheart made by Charity Thaxton, who's also on staff. This usually the plan is to hang this kind of right above the toilet, so as you walk in you get this beautiful greeting. Uh, hi to Karen and Nitsa who are on the chat. If you are watching and you don't say hi to me on the chat, I will be sad. So make sure that you you say hi to me so I know you're there. Yeah, and so we are going to get started today. Today's topic is not technically ceramic related, but it is ceramically minded, if you ask me. We're going to talk about baking bread and my processes. So last week during the stream, I did ask anyone who's baking quarantine bread to send me a picture of what they had made, and I'm glad to say I do have a couple pictures to share with you. So I'm just gonna hop into this is our bread cam mode. So these are some of the beautiful pieces of bread made by by some of the people at the Clay Studio. So this one and the one next to my head were made by Corey, the associate, if you know her. And the one over here was made by yours truly. So that's some bread. So I didn't get a lot of submissions for loaves of bread. Well, I assume that's because y'all just haven't been brave enough to make any. Yeah, that is a challenge. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my sourdough and how I do that, and the whole deal. So first we're going to talk about a little bit of terminology. When it comes to sourdough, you have what's called a sourdough culture and your sourdough starter. They're kind of used interchangeably, but a lot of older making books will delineate there are two separate terms to them. So your culture is kind of like the colony of yeast that you're growing to leaven your bread, and that is the thing that you that is the thing that you feed, and also is the thing that sits in your refrigerator and you forget about and it dries out and then you have to restart. So this is my sourdough culture is just in it's the Sprouts brand, but a Talenti jar. And I'm gonna try to show you guys the inside of it. I don't know how well it will show up on the camera, but it is a super bubbly and super soupy kind of mixture. When you open it, it has kind of a fruity but also kind of alcoholish smell to it. That alcohol is a byproduct of the fermentation process, as I'm sure you all know. So the yeast are turning the glucose in in the flour into alcohol as they eat. So when you get that on top, you can kind of just pour it out, or you can mix it back in. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like so that's like the mother, and that's where I grab yeast out of to make my bread. So that like um like that gets fed and stuff, but we're not baking directly out of that. So I did start a starter today too, and I'm using my Justin Rawshank bowl to do it. So this has been sitting out for like a little bit now. So this is like, whereas the culture is a 1-to-1 with flour to water. So like if you put a cup of water in, I put a cup of flour in. This is like a specific mix for a recipe, and I think you can see that there's some pretty big bubbles starting to form and pop. It's like getting really active. This is about 50% larger than when I started it at 11. Nitsa's asking an interesting question. Does homemade bread last longer than store-bought? No, because it doesn't have preservatives in it, but you can put it in the freezer like you would store-bought bread, and that makes it basically last like a couple months. But I have found that we go through the bread so fast that we've never tested how long it will last. But also the thing that makes sourdough sour, like that active like yeast colony, that in that fermentation process, also the sourness of it is like analogous to like vinegar in pickles, so it does actually keep longer than like if you baked like a sandwich loaf out of just like white bread or what like white flour or whatever, so it will keep longer anyway. Quick cameo by Reagan. That's my roommate. Oh, wow. So yeah, it does. Sourdough does last longer than other homemade breads, though. And so like this starter that I started was it's like 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. Like about a little more than a fourth cup of I put really, really warm water in there, and then half a cup of that culture in the jar. So that is going to sit and double. You know your sourdough starter is ready when you take like a little cup of water, and you put a little piece of your starter in there, like scoop it out with a spoon. If you put it in there and it floats, that means it's ready to go. It's active. It's got a lot of yeast producing carbon dioxide in it, so that's and that's why it's buoyant. So that is like, you're ready to go. Karen's asking, what's the easiest type of bread to make? That's a good question. I think that's up to everyone's got a different opinion. If you don't mind like kneading for a little bit, there's like, you can make a sandwich with commercial yeast. You can make like a white like sandwich loaf in an hour, and that's probably the easiest thing. Just you just would like, you gotta like knead it to the right consistency to have like a tight crumb, so you do have to like, it's a little bit of a learning curve. Or you know what, the easiest bread to make is like a beer bread. So that would be like, basically you mix flour and your salt together, and then like usually people mix in like cheese or fresh herbs and stuff like that, because you're gonna have a dense bread. Like that's like, you're not going to get a light fluffy bread from this method. But essentially what you would do is mix all that together and then pour a bottle of beer into it, or cider or whatever, and there's already the carbon dioxide in there from the yeast from the beer making the beer making process. So you just pour that in, mix it as quickly as possible, while trying to deflate it as little as possible. Dump it into a cooking morris, or a cooking dump it into a cooking vessel, and then just throw it in the oven as fast as you can. Oh, Trek says, aha, bread. Yeah. I find that today I measured out my ingredients on a kitchen scale, and it felt very much like measuring out a glaze recipe. So maybe that, I don't know, Chuck, if you like making bread And you also use like a kitchen scale to do it, but I could see you with like you're mixing your mixing your glazes, also being interested in baking that same way. So anywho, so my sourdough starter, when it floats, I'm going to mix in like over a cup of warm water into the starter, and then like try to mix it and thin it really thin it out, and then I would add about 3 cups of flours. Sometimes I'll mix in like a cup of wheat flour that I'll sift to get any of the bran out. Sometimes I will just straight up do all 3 cups all-purpose flour. I don't, like people are like, oh, you gotta use bread flour. I don't necessarily think you need to. And also like, I don't know. I think all-purpose flour. I mean, it's not as fine as it's not as glutinous as bread flour, and it's not as like fine and satin as like cake flour, but it works for basically everything. I'm not a professional baker, so I just do what I can. Nissa's asking, can you use the bread batter to make something else? Yeah, like why not? I mean, the easiest thing, you could also like make fry bread, which I like a lot. I mean, that would certainly, it'd basically be just making your dough and then throwing it in a skillet instead. The culture though, so like it basically doubles in size every time I feed it. But there are a bunch of different things you can do with that culture. You can use it to replace. So like if you take a cup of culture out, it's basically 1-to-1 water to flour. So you take a cup of your I think it's like you take a cup of the flour out of your recipe and then a cup of the water out of whatever your recipe is, but it makes your pancakes taste so much better. I actually just made sourdough crepes, and and it made them like super tender to have that like long fermentation in the fridge overnight. So but like yeah, there's a lot of different uses for that sourdough starter. Basically anything you're using flour and water, you can substitute out some of your starter, especially if it gets bigger. I never throw it away. I used to put it in my compost, and I've stopped doing that too, because I'll just make it into other stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then the with a sourdough bread specifically, after you get all your like dry ingredients in there with the starter, then the most important thing is to just like start. So the first thing you're gonna do is let all of your ingredients kind of like, you need them to you need the flour to hydrate essentially, and it's called something specific, and it starts with an A. And if anyone in the chat knows and can tell me, that would be great, because it's escaping me now. But I let it rest for like 20-30 minutes. Sometimes I forget about it, I'm not gonna lie. And then after that is so like some people will let it rest and then mix the salt in. I sometimes will reserve some of the water and mix my salt into the water and then add that. But I've also just like straight up put the salt in with the flour and haven't had really a change in texture or anything. So nowadays I just kind of mix it all together all at once. And so after you've let it rest for a while, you put it in something that it can do its bulk rise in, its bulk fermentation, and then you start doing the folds. So I use like a square, it's like a pretty deep casserole dish, and the reason I use that, it's got a lid, so I don't have to use I don't have to grease up. Have you ever tried to grease plastic wrap so it won't stick to anything sticky? It is like a nightmare. So I use a lid for my proofing vessels. I won't use the plastic wrap. So what you do then is you start doing turns. So basically like you pull the dough out, you kind of stretch it out and fold it over itself, and then I rotate 90 degrees. Some people rotate 45 and do 8 turns. I rotate 90, degrees and do just 4 turns of like pulling it out and folding it over itself. And the first time you do it, it's going to be kind of like crumbly and stuff. By the time you finish bulk fermentation, it is like, it's like elastic. It's like very smooth, and that's that gluten developing as you turn it and as it ferments. So, after that, I turn it out into a surface. If I'm going to divide it into 2 loaves, this is when I would do it. Usually my recipes are for 1 loaf, or I like to make 1 big loaf and just cut off of it all the time. I then like will you kind of like pull the skin of it over itself and like twist the bottom under to like kind of like destroy the seam. In the same way, you want to kind of hide a pinch pot seam, because you don't, that's like a place where it can like break apart like in a way you don't want it to. In that same way, you kind of, when you have that dough, you want to fold it in and then like seal that seam. Hi Lily D. Hi. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. Okay, yeah, so that after that, I mean, you just let it rise. I put it in the fridge overnight. I pull it out the next day for a second rise, where I shape it and put it on a piece of parchment paper that it's going to cook on, do a second rise. And I think the most important thing for bread making by far has to be oven spring and hot and humid ovens. So some people do this with lava rocks. I just get like a cake pan or something, or like a really wide vessel, on the very bottommost rack, as far down as I can. I put that cake pan and put it in the oven. The second to bottom rack is where if I had a pizza stone, I would use that, but I don't have one. So I put the biggest baking sheet I have upside down, so the bottom side is what we're gonna cook on. I put that in the middle of the rack. That's the second lowest it can go. It's like as low as I can get it, basically, without it like hitting the the cake pan. Then I set my oven to, I want to say 450 degrees. Close it, let it preheat, don't touch it. And that's for like an hour before I'm ready to bake. And then a minute before I put this bad boy right in the oven, a minute before I'm gonna I pour a bunch of water into that cake pan. It starts boiling immediately. Usually I close the oven door and it's just creating a steamy atmosphere. After that, I'll cut the slit in the bread wherever it's going to be, so it can kind of expand out without bursting in a weird way. And it's also like decorative and fun. And then I given it a minute to steam up, open the oven door, throw the bread in there, trying not to pop the like air bubbles or disturb it too much, but as quickly as I can, move it over onto that upside down cookie sheet, and then close the oven door. And that's the secret. You cannot open that oven door after that, and it's very tempting, I know, but you just can't. And so I let it cook for about 20 minutes at 450 degrees, and then I dial it back to 400. Like I'll dial it back quite a bit. If you keep it at 450, you're gonna burn the crust. You won't have, it'll be very bitter. You won't have like a nice crunchy crust. You'll have a scorched crust. And the secret is gonna be that really hot sheet pan, or preferably like low pizza stone, in my opinion, because when the bread makes contact with that, instantly it starts to rise upward and spring upward, and that's what's called oven spring, and that's how you get like a tall and light, airy loaf of sourdough. And then that bad boy cooks for like 40 minutes. Yeah, and that's basically, in 20 minutes or less, my everything I do to make bread. Again, that oven spring though, that's also stands true for pizza dough. It stands true for most things. that you put in the oven, even like cakes and stuff, you do want to, like, if you're cooking a cake, you want to use a thin, like a very thin, like, aluminum cake pan, because you want that metal to heat up as fast as, and transfer heat as fast as possible to get as much of a spring and a sponge as you can in the cake. And yeah, so that's everything I have to say about bread. I don't know if you guys have opinions. I don't know where it is for you guys, but go type down in the chat what your opinions on, or like how you make bread, because I'd love to see how everyone else does it. And that's like, I think the cool thing about baking, we have like a bunch of different things that we all kind of like agree has to happen, like hot and humid oven and stuff, but everyone has like a different opinion, especially when it comes to adding salt to dough, of all things. Everyone's got a lot of opinions about that. And yeah, so let me know what you think, and I'll and if you do make bread, please send me a picture of it, because I want to see it. So yeah, I'm gonna also open it up if anyone else has any other questions about bread or ceramics. We can do either. If you don't, I'm just gonna keep talking to you about different breads I'm making. So this is gonna quickly become the bread live stream if you're not careful. Yeah. Or I can also talk to you about all the other weird things I'm doing in the kitchen. I just plugged in I've had a rice cooker plugged in for about 4 days now on its like warm settings, like, or just like just on setting. And I've got like 9 whole cloves of garlic sitting in it that I'm slowly, I don't know if it's actually fermentation or if it's technically very, very slowly cooking them, but I'm making black garlic. And the jury's out on how long it's gonna take. Some people are saying, like I've seen on the internet, everything from 9 days to 6 weeks, so I don't know when I'll check it first, probably in like 2 weeks. And hopefully it turns out. I mean, otherwise I'm gonna have 9 bulbs of very, very dry garlic to have to, I guess I could turn in the powder. Karen says that she likes to eat bread but hasn't made any. Isn't that just the way of the world? You know, some people make ceramics, some people just collect them. I think that everyone should try making bread. It's not as hard as people sometimes make it out to be. I wouldn't be intimidated. Also, I mean, if you want to try your hand at sourdough, but you're not sure, I would start making a sourdough culture right now, because it's going to take a while for it to be ready. Like sometimes a couple of weeks, depending on like the local yeast in your area. That's the other cool thing about sourdough starter, is as it sits on your counter specifically, it's going to start changing the flavor profile slightly. Like, you know how people say like New York bagels taste different from New Jersey bagels and all that. The same is true for sourdough, so it tastes different based on where you are, and it has something to do with both like the yeast, the like native yeast in your area, and also like the tap water, if you don't use filtered water. Chuck says, oh, Chuck is baking a loaf. Send me a picture when it's done. Chuck makes a really hydrated dough and lets it rise for 24 hours. That's cool. Yeah, I usually make like a drier dough, because mostly like, well, I don't usually cook in like in either like a Dutch oven or something that's gonna give my bread like a form, like a loaf pan. Like I usually don't cook bread in that unless I'm making a sandwich loaf specifically to make like sandwich bread. So I do very low hydration dough that you can kind of like form and shape, and it's gonna keep that general shape. It's not gonna spread out like a pancake, but yeah, a wet dough. That's a great way to make bread too. Also, ooh, a 24-hour rise? Yeah, that's nice. I mean, this guy, my starter has been going now for 3.5 hours. And it will probably be another 3 or 4 until I incorporate it into the dough. Then I'm gonna, turning the dough and stuff for probably, if I do it tonight, I'm gonna be up pretty late folding dough on itself. Well, it bulk ferments. But that's also the beauty of doing a sourdough bread. It is like a pretty long project. Like Chuck says, he lets his rise for 24 hours. Mine is probably going to be like a 16-hour or so rise. The cool thing about the sourdough, though, is that you can throw, at any point of this process, I would say other than when you're doing bulk fermentation, you probably should be keeping an eye on it. But any other part during this process, like if I'm decided tonight, like I'm not gonna stay up late, I can throw my starter in the fridge, and that's gonna slow it down and deepen the flavor too, because it's still gonna be active. It's still gonna be working, but it's not gonna be working so much that it's gonna exhaust itself. I can slow down that process and come back to it tomorrow and just throw it back in the fridge. So I would encourage everyone to try to do a sourdough. And just, we have plenty of time to be letting stuff sit around on your counter, and while we're home is now the best. You won't have any better time to be monitoring it. My culture has almost crashed a couple times because you're like busy with work and you get home late, and then like all you can think of is like feeding your cats and yourself, and then you go to bed and then you forget, oh no, I do have to also feed this starter. My starter, now that it's out of the fridge, is also super, super active. I actually feed it twice a day right now. It's like its own person. Yeah, also, oh man. Chuck Morris also says, ooh, black garlic. I will share some with you because who knows, it might not be done until we're able to reopen anyway. So maybe it might be getting ready just about when we're back in action. Yeah, but it also keeps for a long time, so I'll save you a bulb or two, Chuck. Also, this is a shout out. It's also a suggestion. Is to get a collection of like smaller, like about a cup and a half or 2 cup sized like bowls while you're cooking, so that you can kind of have ingredients out, and you're not stopping and measuring stuff the whole time. And Chuck Morris's little tea bowls, I use them all the time for that. So that's some free promotion for Chuck for being on the stream today. Yeah. Yeah, so does anyone else have any other questions? I mean, I will really just continue talking about weird experiments I'm doing in my house right now. If if no one else has any questions, I also have a garlic growing, above ground garlic growing experiment going on right now. It's in a fish tank. So I had some garlic bulbs that I let go green on me, and they sprouted, and instead of just like, getting rid of them or like composting them or something, I decided to fill a fish tank that I had up with gardening soil, and I just stuck them in there, and they seem to be growing. The strongest one is about yay big. Yeah, so that is going fairly well. Karen's asking if you can plant garlic outside now or it's too soon. So technically people, usually you would plant garlic in the fall. So you would plant it in the fall, it would sit and hibernate all winter, and then it would spring up during the during the um during the spring. You can, though, by all means, plant garlic outside now. I think definitely not gonna get another frost. So I think you would be fine planting it right now. I'm doing, I guess, like an all year round production now with the garlic. We'll see. I might end up tricking my garlic bulbs into thinking that it's like gonna be spring, or it's like spring/summer forever, and just constantly be getting spring garlic. So I think if planting in the fall, and I'm not like an expert, like onion and garlic gardener. I'm much more competent with things above the ground than things that are growing below the ground. But I believe you plant them in the fall to deepen the flavor. But I don't think you have to. If anyone wants to correct me or has a different opinion, please let Karen know. um, so hi, I did see a couple new people jump on. Hi, welcome. We've been talking about sourdough this whole time, and we've moved on to garlic. So we're having a very savory stream. Because maybe it's just because maybe I need to start eating before before I do this. So I'm not just talking about food the whole time. Hi Emma, welcome. Uh, yeah, so I mean, Karen, if you got garlic bulbs, especially if they've already, popped, if they're green, you might as well throw them in the ground and see what happens. I believe the common the common like rule of thumb is double, like if like bury it a bulb's length under the ground. So and then you want that flat rooty side facing down and like the pointy tip to be facing up. What other garlic tips do I have? Oh, if you've got some kind of like lighter, fluffier soil, I would use that. 'Cause you want the bulb to be able to push out and grow more bulbs. So in order to like if you pack on that soil really densely, or if you don't have like my soil has a bunch of like wood and stuff in it, you want to have just a lighter soil so it can grow outwards. And then I believe you want to keep about 4 inches around. Okay, so now we're doing a garden update. Please tell me your garden updates in the chat. It looks like Emma's finished planting some green peas and lettuce and green beans. Oh man, I wish I had like more of a backyard. I've got like these little above ground boxes that I'm working on. But you know what? It's hard to find dirt right now. Great. Karen is going to do a garlic experiment too. I'm very excited not to be the only one out there doing a garlic experiment. Very cool. Oh man, I don't need to build a greenhouse per se in my backyard, but what I do need to build is like a Thunderdome cage to keep the squirrels and the raccoons out of my garden, because last year I tried to container garden I just had like a bunch of buckets and stuff, and I sprouted seeds inside, and then I took them out, and all of the little seed sprouts were immediately just eaten, just completely consumed by the urban vermin that is squirrels and raccoons in Philadelphia. They're also not afraid of anything or anyone, so like I caught a squirrel once. I was like, "What are you doing?" I like ran outside and I tried to scare it away, and it scared me back into my house. So I just need to build myself a Thunderdome. Karen says New Jersey has dirt. I mean, yeah, I think Pennsylvania has dirt too. It's just a matter of getting it from point A to point B right now, But if nothing else, I'll have my indoor garlic fish tank. I also planted seeds last week that haven't sprouted yet, so I'm very afraid that they might be too old. Ooh, Emma's got some hot tips. Yeah, everyone give me your hot dirt tips in the chat of where I can go get dirt right now. Or where I can get dirt to come to me, preferably. Yeah, so, what else have I been doing? I updated my axolotl aquarium that you guys unfortunately can't see, but is like my second TV next to me, so I can see them. They're eating right now. Oh, cool. So they're just like hanging out. And I updated their I'm kind of they're a kind of shy species that wants to kind of hide um under the under some kind of like covering. So I have a bunch of different plants that I put in there that are like growing aquaponically. So it's mostly like pothos or things that can basically live with their roots in the water all the time. And now it's slowly but surely growing out and creating like this beautiful canopy for them to hide in. Ooh, Emma says I can get topsoil from Bennett Compost. I have to look into that when we're done here. Alright, yeah, so does anyone else if anyone else has some different like questions for bread, gardening, or ceramics, we're just slowly but surely opening up this live stream to just like weird answers with Shannon. What else? Let's see, what else have I been doing? Oh yeah, I've been obviously drawing in my sketchbook, trying to keep up on that every day, doing a couple like more gestural, like I'm trying to figure out some different like figure poses I can do so that when I finally am back to where my underglazes are, I can I can underglaze paint a whole bunch of stuff. What else? Man, it's really just basically been baking. I'm trying to figure out like a good cookie dough recipe that could become kind of like like a good cookie dough recipe that could become like almost like a clay or fondant kind of situation where I can mold it into like logs and then slice cookies out of it, because I have quite the idea for whenever our pottery sale happens and our clay mobile bake sale happens. I have quite the plan for that. So yeah, it's gonna have to be sugar cookies though, Emma. I see you're very excited about your chocolate chip recipe. So Emma wants to try to make a ceramic baking stone for baking bread, but is afraid of the thermal shock. Well, I think that the deal with that would be to use a clay that is very resistant to thermal shock, like something with grog in it, or like a raku clay or something that would work in a raku kiln, because. And also, I'm not sure you have to really worry about thermal shock of it, like, going up to 450 and coming back down, because all those different, like, clays, all those different ceramic baking stones are made out of something. So, like, I even think that I wonder if like the standard 420 might work. I would be more concerned with it cracking initially when you're firing it in the kiln, because as we all know by now, big flat slabs, and also because you don't want it to be an inch thick because it's gonna be so heavy. Big flat slabs have a tendency of cracking pretty severely in the kiln, usually in half, because you've got like such a high surface area, and as it fires and shrinks, it is dragging, just absolutely dragging across that kiln shelf. So like I would be concerned above anything else if you're making something that's over 12 inches. Honestly, if you're making anything like, you know, yeah, bigger than 12 inches, I'd be afraid of it cracking. But you have to also kind of balance. You do have to balance though the like between it being heavy and sturdy and it being like actually usable. So there's got to be some kind of in between. And I wonder if that would be something like if it was, I don't know, if it was like 3/4 of an inch thick, but then carved out, and so like in like I would carve it out in some kind of like grid, so you have little squares standing on the kiln shelf instead of a giant circle standing and dragging against the kiln shelf. Yeah, I mean, also, yeah, I don't know, a commercial pizza stone broke. Oh no. So I think that, yeah, I probably will over time anyway. I I don't know. I would say go for it. I'm also very very wild when it comes to like unloading my own kilns and stuff. Like I don't I don't think that the thermal shock is too bad once you get to 350 degrees. Like 350 degrees. I think we're like good to go, honestly, because I've got a bunch of ceramic cookware. I mean, it's commercial. I don't know if that changes things, but that stuff goes in and out of the oven at 350 into room temperature like all the time. Like I'm not throwing it in the sink and dousing it with cold water afterwards. So the shock isn't like that severe, but I would say you could always try it. Like the worst thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna have to clean out your oven, which might be the worst thing for some people, but you know. I've also seen some people that cook bread on the bottom, on the floor of their oven, or like pizzas. But I don't think that will work. Um, I don't think that would work though unless you had like a. Well, it wouldn't work in my oven because I have a like I have an electric oven, and the element is sitting on the floor of the oven. Like that's where it sits. So I don't think it would work for me, but maybe if you had a gas oven, you could do something like that. But you'd have to clean your oven first, so that's the downside. Ooh, or yeah, making your own ramekins for creme brulee, that would be pretty sick. I think there's a lot of like really cute little things, and now's the time to do them, right? Like to make cute like little tiny things that you can take with you, like easily transport back to the studio and stuff like that. So, oh man, you know what else would be really cute if you could figure out a clay that would survive being like baked and brought out. That could be like a beautiful like ceramic pie plate, or even better. Have you seen those crazy like cookie trays that are like really ornately carved out, like you like press the sugar cookie dough into them, and then it comes out with these like ornately carved kind of like patterns. I think that would be really cool to try to make something like that. Emma's complimenting my nails. Thank you. I did them myself while watching the Dark Crystal. So um yeah, so you see that's like another bright side. Like usually at work I would never be able to have my nails painted because um they'd get chipped instantly, and then I get like really OCD about it and would have to like peel the whole nail polish off if a piece of it gets chipped. So yeah, because I've been doing mostly computer work, and not having my hands like soaked in buckets, or just like getting just destroyed by paint, or destroyed by like wheel throwing or something like that. Yeah, being able to paint the nails. Um, all right, so Yeah, this has been a very productive meeting of the minds today, talking about garlic bread and weird oven experiments, weird ceramic oven experiments. if if you make something out of ceramics and it breaks in your oven, I'd want to point out now I'm not liable. So you have been warned. I did get got some feedback last week from the wonderful Nissa that she missed me not doing any songs or anything like that. And the reason that happened was because I happened to burn my finger pretty badly on my own oven as I was making bread. So that was on me. I didn't play last week because I couldn't press down on any strings without severe finger pain. So, but I'm back this week. And now I guess my question to all of you is: would you rather sing along to a sea shanty, or do you just want me to play something for you guys? I guess that's my question. So I know there's a delay on the stream, so I'll give you all a second to respond. So I'll just pull this over and get tuned up while I'm waiting for y'all's input. Nathan just says play something. So we'll see if we get any responses for what to play. I'm also sorry for the noise. I've managed to lose my guitar pick for the 10th time today. So that doesn't bode well. That doesn't bode well for the old nail polish, but I guess we'll just go for it anyway. Yep, it's really gone, isn't it? I'm just gonna check one more spot. Maybe it's under there. Nope. I've done and lost my guitar pick. Okay. Some Passover Easter jams? I don't know any Passover or Easter jams. I'm not convinced there are any Easter jams. Y'all can prove me wrong by posting them in the comments, but I'm almost 100% sure there are no Passover or Easter jams. Karen's asked me to play something from my Corona playlist. I'm not sure that I can play any of those. Maybe I'll investigate, and maybe next week I'll do it. Alright, one last look for the guitar pick, because I really kind of don't want to play without it. It'll make everything a lot worse for me. But, alright. It's definitely gone forever. So let's just get started. So alright. That was just like a tease. As I get tuned up. The sun is rising up half the way. I never thought I'd see the day. The moon never thought I'd see the day. The sea is bubbling me on the shore. Can't quite tell what I'm hoping for. Dive out to nothing and into more. But I can't quite tell what I'm hoping for. Somehow, maybe now I'll find the words to say. Never thought I'd see the day. The sleeping slip has begun to fray. I never thought I'd see the day. The pious hunter stops stalking prey. I never thought I'd see the day. Spent too much time writing all the lore. Can't quite tell what I'm hoping for. So I'll live my life being so unsure. 'Cause I can't quite tell what I'm hoping for. Somehow, maybe now I'll find the words to say. Never thought I'd see the day. Alright. So that was called See the Day by Brian David Gilbert. Not just checking back in the chat real quick. Nitz is asking, have I mentioned the name of this instrument? I have in the past. If it's called a Appalachian mountain dulcimer. So these two are like called a melody string. So they're the same note. And they just sound really good twanged together. These two strings are what are called a drone harmony. So it's this is an octave lower than the melody string, and then this is the fifth. So this is tuned to D A D. So it's got like a really nice rich. Thank you everyone for your encouragement in chat. Yeah, it's just got a really nice sound. I really like it. It's also easy to play, and easy to learn how to play. Karen's asking if the pick's in my pocket. No, it's not, because I do not have pockets. So unfortunately it's not there. Who knows where it is, but I think, yeah, we definitely have time for at least one more song. So if everyone wants to do a sing-along, I'll I think we should do a sing-along. So I'm gonna teach you guys the chorus, kind of like the callback to it's a sea shanty called "Leave Her Johnny." You know what I'll do actually? Let's see if I can. I'm gonna post the lyrics in the chat. And then you guys can. Those are the lyrics for like the for the chorus of it, and then you should be able to kind of grab on to what the callback is as we sing, because it's going to be the same lines. It's going to be like one line you haven't heard before, a line that's going to get repeated, another line you haven't heard before, and the line that gets repeated, and then we sing that together. So you can join in. I think I love the idea of like a bunch of people in different parts of the city / possibly the country if Emma is in New York. Yeah. just singing this to themselves and people being like, what is going on? So so this chorus, I'll teach you now, like the the melody to it. So it's, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done, and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Don't be intimidated. Just try to sing along as best you can. I can't hear you, so I can't judge you. So let's do this. Oh, the time was hard and the wages low. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. And the grub was bad and the gales did blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. I thought I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. You can go ashore and take your pay, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, stern was foul and her voyage was long. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. And the wind was bad and the gales was strong, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her with a grin. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. There's many a worse that we've sailed in, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. And now it's time to say goodbye. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the old pier head is a drawing nigh, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is done and the winds do blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Alright. I hope you guys actually sang along. It would be real weird to just do that by myself, because you're supposed to sing two sea shanties. Yeah, so I think that's a good note to leave it off on. So Emma's suggesting that I just become an Appalachian folk singer. We'll see. Thank you, Karen, for the applause. Always unbearable to hear myself go up into a falsetto, so thank you for that. Oh, Chuck, stop it. Okay, so I think we're gonna leave it on that note. I hope you guys had a good time hanging out for me for the past hour. I can't believe an hour has gone by so fast. And if we just want to check before we go, we'll just double check this starter. Yeah, that's looking just about ready to pop off. So I guess I'm gonna go now and go make some bread. Send me pictures of your bread. If you make any this week or anything else you make. It's been nice seeing you. Uh, this is Shannon Jones signing out. Oh, I'm not signing out yet. And now, goodbye.